everyone! If you have not read the story, I really suggest going and reading it first before you listen to my analysis because I really don't want to spoil the story for those who are going to read it for the first time. I am so thankful that this story was written, and I'm so happy to be able to do this analysis. And I think the prologue is very right when it says, "What is here will only attract the kind that read Kafka as comedy." It seems to be for an audience that likes the very surreal, Kafka-esque-like stories, and I also saw elements of Camus' The Stranger in here as well. As the main character seems to be thrown into this world where she is forced to only make decisions based on that very moment. And please forgive me, I know that I will probably interpret some of this that is off from what the author intended, so do not take all of what I say to heart and read it for yourself to make your own interpretation. To say that the story The Pérelin Decline is about rocks would be the truth and a lie. It is true that Simone La Rochelle's apartment was filled with rocks, but these rocks, much like memory, fade into the background until all that is left is the weight of the impression it gives us. I think there are specific moments in our life when we wake up and we ask ourselves, how did I get here? The memories are there, but they're very muffled. The only thing that seems to linger is an intense sort of feeling that was attached to these memories, that for some reason brought us to the place we are. It seems that we desperately try to search for what brought us to this moment, but often we cannot pinpoint a specific moment, only retrieve jumbles of words and images. In that case, we may ask ourselves, were any of those memories true? And so all that's left to do is move forward. That is all we have. This book for sure has the ability to put one in an existential crisis. Is everything I remember true, or is it just a dream merged with recorded history? Can all I be sure of is what lies in front of me? And if that's the case, will that make decisions moving forward much more difficult for me to choose because all I'm able to rely on is what is in front of me? But I constantly feel the sensation of being held down by the weight of the past that I can't even properly remember. And I think if the author was trying to convey this message, rocks were a great element to use in this story. They all seem to have their own qualities, but also blend together and are difficult to differentiate from. I was actually really glad not to figure out what the rocks meant by the end of the story, and toward the middle I kind of knew that this was how it was going to end. I think it was more about the journey of figuring out what it meant to be, now that Simone had barely any past that she couldn't even decipher whether it was her past or not. I think what was so beautiful about the story was the choice to leave it behind and move forward. Because if she would have stayed, Simone would have spiraled and just been doing the same thing over and over again with no way to figure out what the past actually was. In some instances, Simone was so devoured by finding the past, she forgets to eat until she absolutely has to. If one lives life like this, then there is no possible way to move forward in a different direction. One must choose a point and start from there. But then how do we make a rational decision to move in a particular direction if we cannot rely on past memories that will take us to that particular point we are trying to get to? And actually, this makes me think of how sometimes we will make a decision thinking that it's rational, but then we realize that it was irrational after we make that decision. So can we really rely on our memories to tell us where to go? I really enjoyed this passage here that talks about the rational decision. There was no possibility of a rational decision to do anything at all. When every result of every outcome ends at the same point, there can be no rational decision on what to do. And if there were two separate realities in which her decision would determine a particular destination at the end of the day, she would then need to select a way to go about making such a decision, which in itself would demand a prior decision ad infinitum. For Simone to be free to act in any possible manner, she would have to do so without any thought, to decide without any decision. But it was exactly there, with that problem, she had realized that the only possible way to do such a thing is to not realize that she was doing such a thing. To decide without any decision also makes me think of moving non-everydayness to a mode of everydayness. But this story does a really fantastic job of causing the reader to ask questions they may have not considered before. Then once they ask those questions, they ask more, and it seems to keep on going. Before I finish up, I do want to talk about my two favorite scenes. The first scene was when Simone found this giant rock in her storage area, which I actually laughed at because it seemed to be like a curiosity killed the cat moment. It's almost like saying that some things that stay in the past need to stay there, or you're going to end up paying for it if you dig it up, which she does. My other favorite scene was when the bartender keeps giving Simone free drinks and is happy to do so, and it's almost like life is happy to just throw more things our way, which it does. Every time a decision is made and something is concealed, something else is revealed, and we seem to keep being thrown into situations. But I think Simone's situation is very different, and I think this is where the idea of freedom may come in. And I may not be explaining this quite the way I want to, but how can something be revealed if everything is concealed? And I mean everything that Simone would base her next decision on is concealed. If everything is concealed, then is nothing revealed, which then makes all possibilities revealed.